Welcome to Conscious Dominance, a DSRX studio production with Eric and Andrew. In our weekly conversations, we explore how we approach our committed relationships as a powerful catalyst for mindful leadership and inner dominance. As men who intentionally lead our powerful feminine partners, we share insights for discovering how the craft of consciousness deepens our capacity to love, serve, and connect with our true selves. I would love today, as we've been talking about integrity, I don't think we've ever had that as a topic in and of itself. We may have, I don't remember. We've talked about it as an important part of the pillars of conscious dominance,
Right.
but I don't think we've isolated it and talked about it individually. And it is one of the pillars, if not the most important pillar. So it's almost as though nothing else can occur until there's integrity.
Right.
To me, it's like a building. If you're going to build a building and your foundation isn't in integrity, we use the language of integrity when we speak about a building's integrity, which means its capacity to withstand weight, to do its purpose. And I feel one of the hallmarks of integrity is it as a foundational value upon which all other values rest. And I would love for you to riff a little bit on, I know you're very passionate about the word and you probably usually have a take on it that's a little counter to the conventional, probably, and as well as the conventional. So we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. There's a lot of different angles that I'm sure will come at this from in this conversation, but I love where you started it as a way of approaching life, because if something doesn't have integrity, if a building, to use your analogy, doesn't have integrity, it collapses. And if I, as a man, don't have integrity, I collapse. Plain and simple. That's just how it works. So if I'm collapsing, if I'm falling apart, because I have a lack of integrity, it's because there's not a solid foundation underneath the man or underneath my life in the way that I'm showing up. So if I want to step forward into my life and be and feel dominant, if I want to step into my life and be in control, be able to lead from a place of strength and solidity, then I can't be falling apart all the time. And when guys step out into dominance, and when I started stepping into this role in my life and in our relationship, I fell over, collapsed, fell apart more times than I could count. And what it continued to come back to was I wasn't based on anything. I didn't have anything underneath this. I was trying to be a dom, but what was I building that dominance on? I didn't even know who the fuck I was. And I've got to be able to know who the fuck I am in order to be that person, in order to be in integrity to it. Like, integrity isn't just don't lie and don't be a cheating bastard. It's so much more and deeper than that. We have to be in integrity to something. And that's, I think, the biggest key that people miss is they can say, yeah, I have integrity. I generally don't cheat or lie. Like, okay. I think I've probably said it before. That's kindergarten level integrity. But to really be a man with integrity, you have to know who you are and then be that and deal with all of the shit that comes up that makes you terrified to actually be the person that you are, that you were born to be.
When you say, what are you basing your integrity on now?
Values, core values.
What are your core values?
Truth, freedom, authenticity. Integrity is a value, but also integrity is holding myself to those values. So it's both, but truth, freedom, authenticity, integrity, fun, and beauty are what I classify as my highest values.
What if you have a situation where there's something that's authentic, to be in your authenticity, but it's counter to beauty or counter to fun or counter to truth or counter? How do you reconcile conflicting values?
You have to know what's more important to you. I teach this to guys all the time. And in my Becoming a Dominant Man course, one of the exercises that the men that are in that course go through is building out this list of your values. And so one of the things you have to do is, let's say that you recognize that you value honesty and you also value financial abundance, wealth. Okay. You have to know in what order do these values matter to you? Are you going to sacrifice your honesty for money, or will you sacrifice money for your honesty? If both those things are values, you have to look at if I have to choose between them, which one is more important? You have to know your values, but you have to also know what you stand for. Have you ever given some thought to that concept of what are my core values? What are the things that I stand for and stand on?
Oh, a lot.
I know you've mentioned grit and grace quite a few times as a couple of your highest values.
That's true. Another one is regeneration or rebirth, or the capacity to, I mean, it goes along with grit, but it's the capacity to keep going. It's the craft. You're falling down and then being able to get up. The capacity to it's anti-fragility. What is it to be able to fail and then learn from your failure and then keep going? What is it to be able to make a mistake and not it's essentially, what is it to come back from collapse or come back from failure, come back from things like that? And it's repair. And I think one of my highest forms of integrity to me is believing in life, believing in the capacity to keep living and keep going, and believe in this human project. That I have faith in humans. And I think that's counter to a lot of people. I think a lot of people have lost faith in humans. And I see the whole messy construct of all of it as part of it, that we have to be able to have, if you don't have evil and darkness, you don't have goodness. And so I feel my values is the grace to forgive the imperfection of life, my own imperfection and other people's imperfection. And then the grit to keep going and not let that keep us stuck. And so it's really reconciling opposites. And to me, spiritual growth is, or any sort of growth is about reconciling opposites. It's about reconciling my own opposites, my weakness and my strength, my humility and my power, my capacity to fail and then to be reborn and to learn from that, to see how important every struggle is in the process of achieving a goal. Another one of my values is that one of the ways to be anti-fragile is to see myself more than just one identity, that have multiple senses of myself, to see the multiple variety of myself. And I feel so much of what integrity is it's wholeness. And so one of the things that I've been thinking about with integrity is, how do we honor the different parts of ourselves and how do we bring them all together? It's almost like we are a symphony or some sort of a team within us, a family, and there's this internal family systems, there's different parts of ourselves. The integrity is the kind of the harmony of the interiority of ourself, of our soul. And so we might have desires that are counter to other values, or we may have lusts that are over here, and then we have an integrity to something over there. How do we reconcile, instead of squashing this and saying, get out of here? I want to keep that flame alive, but I want to work with this. It's taking two things that are really challenging decisions and creating something that's in between. To me, that's what it is to be an artist. And that's what it is to continually be alive in our integrity. I feel like integrity is alive. It's not some static, here a checklist where you're, oh, I have to be honest, or I have to do this, and and then you check mark it. It's much more complicated. It's much more messy. It's much more, in some instances, you may need to kill, or you may need to lie. In some instances, you may need to just surrender. There is situations, and being aware of the situation and the right value for the situation is also part of integrity. It's complicated. And I feel it's a conversation that needs to take place, but it's also really important not to let that be an excuse to just fucking give up and just to kowtow to your lower propensities or to the parts of you that are full of shit or your bullshit or your this weak part. But at the same time, you want to be compassionate to that so that you can, that's the grace so that you can heal. So there's a balance of that. If you're just a hard ass to yourself but you at the same time, you don't want to be too just like you don't want to coddle it, but you at the same time, in order to encourage it, you've got to acknowledge it. So you've got to acknowledge it, and then we move forward. And that balance of that, to me, is the symphony of integrity in my head. Anyway,
I just kept thinking over and over with everything you were saying that integrity and integrate have the same root thing to recognize in the fact that there's only one Andrew. There's only one Eric. There is one harmonizing truth about the essence of who every person is. There's one truth about me that organizes all of these other pieces and parts and identities, and all these things are just ways that I'm trying to access that one singularity, that one truth of who I am and of the purpose and point of my existence. And we splinter our identities so much as human beings, I think, to go out and we see, oh, well, maybe this will get me love and attention and affection. So I want to be this. I want to be, this is my approach to it when I was younger. I want to be successful. I want to be the perfect boyfriend, husband. I want to be this. I want to be that. This feels good to me. There's something about this that I like. So I'm going to try to be that. I'm going to be this guy. I'm going to be that guy. And there are all these little fragmentations of self that leave us in a place where we're performing life, like where we're acting out or live action role playing a life, and we're not actually being ourselves. So to live in integrity to me is to look at what is the truth about me that I'm trying to access by taking on all of these different little identities, these places that I've tried to put myself out there. What am I really trying to get? What's the lack that I perceive in myself that's causing me to go act in this way to get this result? What's the lack there? Because what it is that I'm trying to avoid is actually pointing me at a deeper truth underneath it. And the only way that I've found to really get down underneath all of those identities is to start integrating the pieces of me that I don't, the things that I'm trying to avoid, the ways that I'm living out that shadow. This comes out for guys all the time in sexual promiscuity or porn use or whatever it is. There's a deeper truth about your sexuality that you're avoiding, that you don't want to speak up for, that you don't feel comfortable or okay with. And so you hide it, you suppress it, you push it down, and then it comes out sideways in these little fucked up ways because you haven't integrated your sexuality into your identity, into your truth. So you end up doing stupid shit with it instead, and you hurt people.
And if you don't honor all of you, the part of you that you're not honoring is going to take over. It's going to be like, what's up? You think you're not going to honor me? Well, I'm going to make sure you honor me.
Yeah. So to live in integrity is really to live an integrated life where you fragmented. And I like the analogy of a symphony. So music is such a great analogy and example for so many different parts of life, but there are all of these different things that are playing out, but there is still to me one singular truth about our essence, about who we really are. And that's generally the thing that we're most ashamed of, that we're most embarrassed about, that we're most afraid of. And we have to be able to integrate that and then be in acceptance of ourselves in order to live in integrity. We can't be in integrity, again, if we're not in integrity to something.
Right. And that's something that we're in integrity to. At the beginning of our life, it might be an integrity to some external values. But eventually, what we're saying and what you're saying is that these values, they become part of authenticity is figuring out what are your values.
Follow through, right? This is one of the ways that we define integrity is when you look at somebody who, and I'm going to use a man here because I'm hoping that we can get a little bit into how this really has to be different for men and women. So I'm going to use men here. When we look at a man who has integrity, one of the ways that you can feel that a man has integrity is his word is solid, that he does what he says he's going to do, and he is who he says that he is, right? His actions align with his words, his actions and his words align with something deeper, and it's all congruent. And so you can trust a man who has integrity, not because he's going to force himself to follow through on everything, but that he's not going to promise to follow through on something that he isn't going to. His word doesn't come from, it comes from that integrated place in himself where he is in a sense of self-trust, where he's in a sense of self-control, and he has some command over his whims and his weaknesses and these things that drive an insecure man who's not in integrity is driven by trying to prove himself. He's driven by trying to look good. He's driven by trying to get something, filling these voids like I talked about before. So we think about integrity and we think about it's so easy to think that it just means forcing yourself to follow through on doing something that you don't want to do. But when you've really integrated yourself,
You want it.
it's not even a question of, and that easy is you have to really be grounded in who you are. And this is why I use this example all the time, but I used to weigh close to 300 pounds. And, that 80 pounds ago, there was so much of my life that was out of integrity. It was showing up in my physical body. I couldn't force myself to go to the gym no matter how hard I tried. I couldn't force myself to keep going to the gym. I couldn't stop eating shitty food. I couldn't stick to a routine. Well, it was because anything that I tried to start or any way that I tried to change myself, it was so unaligned with who I believed myself to be. I didn't myself enough to take care of myself. Integrity is really in the way that it shows up externally. When you really feel a sense of integrity in someone, when somebody you just trust them and you don't even know why, but the person you know that you could jump behind this person and go wherever they tell you to go and it's going to work out. That's a person who's comfortable with himself on the inside. The actions are not even in question because the belief in the rightness of the actions is integrated inside of himself. The belief in himself is integrated on the inside. And so then you can trust the actions because you feel the congruence. It becomes very easy to accomplish anything that matters to you when you're living a life internally of integrity, when you feel congruent, when you're in trust. Now, you might not do all the same shit because you might realize a lot of it had no real place with your actual identity, with your actual truth. Most of us build these whole identities for ourselves as a way to try to be perfect enough to garner love and affection externally that we don't feel for ourselves internally. So most people's identities are completely false and they're not in integrity. So you can't be in integrity to a false identity. You can't be in integrity and also be living from a place of lack and self-hatred internally. Doesn't work.
I think that's really well said. I feel like one of the things that you just said that I want to pull out is congruence. I think congruency is another word for integrity. I feel when we're congruent with what's inside is what's outside. Integrity, like you said, it's easy. It's not a struggle to be in integrity when you're foundations and your values and the way you live all are in harmony. It's not, oh, I have to check and assess what's happening. You're constantly stressed.
Right. It's
you
not
just can
struggle
feel
and there's no force, none of it, because
it's in your body.
it's who you.
It's in your body. You can feel it in the body. It becomes something that's cellular. And when you're out of alignment and when you're out of congruency, it affects your health. I think a lot of this can be seen in the body. There are so many things that I've done in the past where I was sloppy with the way I ate. I was sloppy with what I viewed online. I was sloppy with smoking, with drinking, with any types of drugs, with all of these things. And they yet claim to be somebody who was about health or claim to be somebody who was in integrity. And on this mess, when mess out of congruency is a mess. And to bring it into some sort of order, it's not an order from the outside, it's an order from the inside. And the internal order and the way that we go through that and finding that there might be a period that's a little bit off and a little bit messy, but when you arrive in a place of congruency, you feel it in your body. And you said there's life force, there's a vitality, there's a sexuality, there's that cock energy that we've talked about. There's an energetic space there.
And one of the ways that I have learned to determine for myself if I'm living in integrity is if it feels like I have to force, if it feels I'm having to somehow swim upstream with anything in life, chances are in some way or another, I am out of integrity internally. The actions that I take will flow easily and naturally from me when they are in congruence, when they're in alignment, in integrity to who I am. When I'm in congruence, when I'm not in integrity, then it feels like I have to force. It feels like I'm swimming upstream in a river. And no matter how hard you try to swim upstream in a river, you can swim for a while. You might get somewhere, right? This is what I would do, again, back to the weight thing. I would go to the gym for a few weeks. I would starve myself or force myself to not eat any carbs at all for a while, and all of a sudden I would lose some weight. But it always felt like I was just ripping on to trying not to fuck it up. And I was swimming upstream. I hate myself. If I get far enough upstream, maybe I'll get to a point where I don't hate myself. But that hating myself was really, that was the internal experience I was having. That was the river I was in. So no matter how hard I swam against that current, eventually it took over. It washed me back down the river. And I ended up farther down than I was before. It wasn't really until I started to solidify my internal experience that now keeping myself in good health and good fitness, taking care of myself, now that is the easy part. That's downstream. It's easy. I'm in a tube.
Yeah,
I'm in an inner tube river, getting healthier and healthier, fitter and fitter, better and better. And I would have to swim against that in order to make myself gain 80 pounds again. I would have to work against my own self-love to make myself unhealthy. And now I'm living in congruence with that truth.
No, I feel that. I think that's really well said. When you talk about the flow of integrity, the flow being, as we age, is another part of this that is a challenging part of this, especially if somebody who's identified with having a vitality and working out and life force, and then you get injured or you have something that messes with your capacity of who you thought you were, this integrity to who you are, this congruency. There might be times of adjustment. There might be times where we have to upgrade or adjust that or shift that. And those are the really challenging times, but there are also opportunities. It's the times when we're in flux that we can reconstruct ourselves. And I think that capacity to reconstruct ourselves and ask, what are the current values? How do they integrate? What is this? This is life. The integrity is a verb. It's not some static thing that you just get there and you're there. And I feel I keep thinking about the word resilience when I think about integrity, that there's a resilience when there's a capacity to keep going, to keep standing up, to reform. And it's not a flexibility that's willy-nilly. It's a form that's you. It's a new, more evolved form of you. And I think so often as the masculine, we get really stuck and really rigid. And then when that breaks, we crumb. We don't know how to reconstruct ourselves. So it's form, something happens, reform, but better, and then dissolve and then reform, but better. I wanted to shift though and speak about, you mentioned it, about the feminine. We talked a lot about the masculine. I think a lot of ways this is the masculine form. Where is it different? Let's say it that way.
First of all, I just have to say that there is nothing that I teach that is more confronting to women than what I'm about to say. So buckle up if you're a woman listening to this. And also if you're a man who, if this doesn't feel right or true to you, sit with it for a little while, because the similarities of integrity between a man and a woman end with the fact that it's the same word. Otherwise, it is completely opposite in every way. And it has to be if you want to really feel the intensity of polarity. It was just yesterday that Dawn was saying to me, I don't want to have to try. I just want things to happen for me. And I want it just to be easy. I don't want to have to work for it. I can't force myself anymore. Basically, I just want to rest and have life be awesome. And that is really the root of feminine integrity, because a woman is a receptive being. You were just talking a little bit ago about how really integrity for men is an action-based word. It's a verb, right? It's something that we continually do to move in the direction of something that is true, to move towards a life that's aligned with our values, to make things happen. And for a woman to be in integrity in a feminine way, she has to be in alignment or congruence with how she feels in that moment. She's the present moment. We are the future. We're the projection. We're the action. She's the feeling in the moment. So for a woman to be in integrity, it doesn't matter what she does. It matters how she feels about what she's receiving in this moment. Because the way that she feels and then expresses those feelings, that is the truth of her experience of the moment. That is what she is feeling in response to what it is that she's received. And so what she does or what she accomplishes, if she's really living in an authentic feminine space, doesn't matter. What matters is where she is right now, what she's feeling right now, and can she speak up and express it? The challenge of integrity for a man is integrating all of this stuff so that we can take action in alignment with something that's true. The challenge for integrity with a woman is feeling safe and comfortable in acceptance of her own emotions enough that she can speak up about how she's feeling and share it, a stream of consciousness in the moment, without worrying about what anyone else is going to think about it, without being afraid of pushing someone away, with like overcoming all of the fears of expression of the present moment feeling state is the challenge. But that is what it is to be in integrity as a woman, is to be in constant acceptance and expression of what it is that you feel.
I agree. I see that and I appreciate that. I want to say one of the challenges for me, and I think for Rachel in our relationship, is that when she does that and she hasn't done that and then starts doing that, there's what I call turbulence.
Yeah.
Because there's a period, she might say some truth that's been there all along, and this is the first I'm hearing of it. And so And that part of me that I was identifying myself this way, and then the reality is something else. There are times where I react. And in the moment, I feel my feelings come up. And so I get upset that somehow maybe she hadn't been saying anything. I'm upset at myself and ultimately that she couldn't say anything because she knew that this would happen, that I would collapse in the moment. And so I think my situation is actually very common. I think many women couch what they say, are concerned about how they say it, because when they do, it upsets both the men and the women in their lives. They can't hold them in that space. Those people feel like they have to fix it, or they have to solve it, or they come back, or they get their thing elicits an emotion in them, and then we're both in an expressive way. So what happens? She starts expressing, and then I'm all of a sudden, and then I start expressing, and then we're off to the expressive races. And I think one of the things we do as a commitment is that might happen, and then we're like, okay, time out. I'm going to leave, get my shit together, come back, and I'm in a better place. And I feel like it's an opportunity for me to upgrade, and I've integrated what she said, and I can come back and handle it. But I want to say, what is it in those moments when I fall apart or when I collapse and I get overly expressive? Where am I out of my integrity? Why is it that my body so viscerally upset? And it's often rage. And I know there's some trauma. I know it's shit from my past, but from your take, what is occurring there? If you have the premise that says that when men are out of their integrity, they collapse. The collapsing is what the home that's out of integrity, it collapses. Why is it that women's expression collapses men, and specifically even someone like me who's worked on himself so much, has done so much work? Why does it continue to happen? What's occurring there? Why is it so hard?
It's only hard because it's uncomfortable. I love this. I love it. This saying, if you start doing yoga and you say, well, yoga's hard. No, yoga's not hard. You're just stiff. Yoga just is what it is, and how you relate to it is because of how you are inside, because of what's going on in you. So what happens in a moment like that, if Rachel speaks up and she says something and you just blow up, or you shut down, or you collapse, or whatever it is, that's only because she sensed weakness. And when I say weakness, I mean an internal lack of integrity or strength in you, some part of you that isn't okay. And women sense this. This is why we need women in our lives, by the way. Women sense this perfectly. It's why women have that ability to just seem like they can just poke us right in that place that we don't want to be poked. It's because her system is attuned to scan for a lack of safety. Mm-hmm. She's looking for a place where she can be safe enough to let go and to just be. So when she senses a lack of safety and she says that thing that upsets you, the fact that it upset you shows you that she was right.
Oh, I know.
And that's uncomfortable to the ego, to that part of us that was still trying to avoid or defend or protect some deeper pain. And that's really what's going on, is there's a deeper unresolved pain that's causing us to live in a place of lack, or a place of fear, or a place of defensiveness. And then she goes, she'll say something, I'm really not attracted to your body or turned on by you when you are as overweight as you are. Fucking lost it. Why did I lose it? Because it was true. Why did I lose it? Because it hit some deeper pain, some deeper insecurity in me, a place that I was out of integrity. She felt it, and so she said it. And then because of how defensive I was, by the way that I reacted, I proved to her that I was right. Or I'm sorry, I proved to her that she was right. Why it causes that pain is because she sees through our bullshit to the deeper lack of integrity in us.
Mhm.
And that's why we work so well together. But when there's the way that Dawn and I do this, there's a commitment that I have to myself that if she says something that upsets me, I'm not a victim of that. All right.
Mhm.
She didn't upset me. I got
Mhm.
upset. There's a
Mhm.
difference there.
And I'm good at this when I get away from her. So the thing with the situation with me, when I diagnosed this, it used to be when she would do this, I'd go stew, I'd piss, I'd come back, and it was a wrestling match for hours of days. That's done. So I don't do that anymore. I don't, I know what's happening, but I still have the problem or the situation, the opportunity where in the moment I react, I get triggered. But it's the
Mhm.
same thing. Like I remind myself of that animal or that person that's you look at them wrong and all of a sudden they're like, what's up? That, that is how I am. It's like I have combative in my energy. And I know the reasons,
Well,
but even working through it, it still doesn't matter how much knowledge avails nothing if we're not able to shift. It's in my nervous system.
let's go back to a four agreements concept here of being impeccable with your word. Because this is the second time you've said this now in this conversation. This is just the way that I am combative. I am, okay? Have you made an identity out of that for yourself? This is the way that I am.
Thank you.
Okay, so why have you made that into an identity?
Yeah, you're right.
You've made it
You're
into an
right.
identity because it's protecting a deeper pain.
Yeah, for sure.
You said earlier, yeah, I know there's all this trauma and all these wounds underneath, but yeah, I know there's all this trauma and these wounds underneath.
Oh,
And when you're hurting, when those things are still open, they're
yeah.
still open wounds, and then she pokes them, you are not combative. You are afraid. Like
Yeah, I know.
that
I
inner child is
feel,
afraid.
I know. I sit with my buddies with my inner child. I feel this little worthless, hopeless little boy who was neglected and bullied and raped and horrible shit and didn't get to express that, didn't get to defend himself, didn't get to fight off. I've worked through a lot of that, but obviously not fully. And I think part of this year I was doing EMDR and then I had to stop because it's too much. I'm dealing with all this other stuff. It just was too much. And I realized that I have to go back to that. I have to go back to the work, to back to the therapy, go back to this because it does feel that way. Just yesterday, we were moving. It was the stupidest thing that I got so upset about, but it was having to do with it's territory in the move. I'm in charge of the move, and she started making decisions without me. And then I freaked out, and then she did some stuff, and she had this other woman there that was helping. And I was stomping my little masculine, dominant man. Like it felt like a toddler a little boy who needed to be in charge. And then I went and I knew what was up. And she didn't even say anything. It was just her energy. My energy was stinky. And she just reflected back to me my stinky energy. And I went and sat in the U-Haul outside of the storage unit. We're moving right now. I'm, and I just was, Eric, just there's a ladder that is a part of Arosha, part of Rachel's work that you go through the emotions where you are and you're able to just diagnose, feel it, just name where I am and accept where I was. And I kept having to go down to the bottom of the ladder and God, I feel worthless. I literally feel my value is related to my capacity to be competent. And that if I'm not competent and if I'm not leading effectively, then I'm worthless. And then also my capacity to provide or my capacity to help. And I have a shoulder injury that's hard. It's God, this is really triggering this part of me. And I felt this feeling that was, I'm not even worthy of being alive. I felt it was, and it was ridiculous. It was so absurd that this thing would cause me to feel this way. And I was like,
It was
but
real.
but it was real. And I sat with myself, I put some music on, I sat there and I breathed and I held myself in that moment and just was compassionate to this little boy. And it was amazing because after I did that, I was able to go do my work, came back. We had awesome life the rest of the day, great sex. Everything was on the other side of me holding myself and holding that little boy in that moment. That's also my integrity. My integrity is to that. Yes, I might collapse. Yes, I might be out of integrity in that moment, but on a bigger picture, I come back. It's my capacity, the grit. What's amazing is the word integrity has the word grit in it. And I think integrity, it's the action. To me, it's the verb of grit. You want to see what integrity is. It's the verb of grit. It's your capacity to make a mistake, come back, and then come back out of that. And to me, that's the practice that I'm in. It's the commitment. To me, that's the Dom sub commitment too. That's the conscious dominance. I'm not going to her to fix it and to make me feel better. I'm not bringing my shit to her. I'm all sad and pouty. You got to make me feel better. You got to make sure and acquiesce to my bullshit. You got to follow me no matter how crappy I am. No, you just can look at me like, shoot, you literally, what the fuck are you doing?
So here's the deeper message to this, and you're on this, but I want to make sure that I make this clear for anyone who's listening to this because it's so fucking important. What you're talking about there is the identification of the wound. You're looking at the identification or the self-awareness in the moment of, okay, this happened. I felt this way. I had this reaction. I can see that this is going on inside of me, right? You're not blaming her. You're taking responsibility and having the self-awareness to look inside yourself and recognize what's going on in you, right? All of that. And the ability to do what you did is incredible. That alone changes your life and changes your. The next step deeper, what you're talking about with doing EMDR and whatever the trauma healing modality is that you choose to engage with. EMDR has been the life-changing one for me. Look into somatic experiencing. Look into other somatic healing methods. Hypnotherapy can be extremely effective here if you have a really good practitioner. Whatever the method is, it's not a life sentence that you continue to go through the same pattern of falling apart, putting yourself back together. It's not Humpty Dumpty forever. You're not always falling off the wall and then putting yourself back together and getting back up on the wall.
I want to say that there are like 5 different areas of my life where I don't fall apart anymore in.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see that. I agree with you. But
because underneath that, you can actually, by using these modalities that help us get down to the deeper pain, those things that happened when we were younger. You listed off a whole bunch of shit that happened to you. I had a whole bunch of shit that happened to me too. Those things hurt us. Now we react in these ways and we create these identities and we assume that we are, or we act as though we are a certain way because we're really just trying to avoid having that pain re-engaged because that wound is still open. We can heal that wound up and then we just don't react that way. What happened yesterday? At some point, I know you, I know your commitment to this work, I know your commitment to yourself and your relationship, and I believe in you. And I know it because you've already done this in so many other parts of your life. That seeing of yourself helps you then identify, oh shit, there's something going on inside of me that's causing me to act this way. And then you can deal with what's going on inside of you. And then the next time, you just don't react that way anymore. The reaction just isn't even there. And you've experienced that. And that's the bigger message for the guys listening to this is you can heal this shit up in a way that you just pissed any of these things, you don't feel that way anymore. It doesn't even exist in your system anymore when you do this deeper healing.
And going back to the feminine and the integrity, part of her integrity, though, they work together. What you said, it's so important that she expresses. It's so important that she's in her change and her flexibility, all of these things, because this is literally the pole. I feel like the masculine, so much of my life lately has been about time. One of the big struggles I have for time. She feels like it's always attacking her and constrained. And so she feels threatened by it. And so because of that, I want to free that. But then when I free that up, why are you not holding the time? But she's always feeling pressured. So I have to actually literally become the very thing that she hates, which is I have to be this person of time and this person of structure and this person of order, but she feels attacked by that. So she reacts, and then it's my capacity to say no and to literally disappoint her in the moment and literally hold a structure that may not be comfortable. And then she reacts, and to be able to move that forward. It's a life force. It's life that gives. And I feel like her job is to be life, which is life is expanding and pulsing. And then my job is literally to be almost like death, which is to say no and to bring this order to it.
To have a woman who is in constant expression of how she feels in the moment, who's not tamping down the bigness of that emotion that is life, right? You said that's the life force. So when we get uncomfortable with how she's feeling, when her expression somehow, if our wounding, our pain is receiving that as an attack, and then we're trying to, maybe she's crying and we go, no, it's okay. It's okay. What about the dignity of the fact that's how she was actually feeling? When she's upset and we're like, don't be angry, she is angry. Then what that does is we will, as men, and we have as men and as a culture, we've put women in a place where they're constantly thinking about what they feel. They're constantly having to try to decide, can I express myself here? Or if I express myself, is it going to push love away from me? Is it going to cause someone to shut down? And so there's this closing up of their expression, and
you feel it. I call it bracing. Anytime she's bracing,
yeah,
she's stiff, and
it's driven by fear.
Yeah.
For a woman to be in integrity, to express what she feels in the moment, that's how she gets to bring all of her life and aliveness to us. Mm-hmm. But we can't tell her, express this, but this makes me feel uncomfortable. So don't say this. And like, when you speak like that, you're being disrespectful. Let her have the dignity of being and feeling how she is and feeling how she feels and sharing that.
Oh,
because it's
brutal
real.
Sometimes.
It is, but it's only brutal to our ego. So it's a salve, and it's life itself to your soul.
For sure. I have so many examples of this, of where she's expressed, and then it's literally what's driven a fire to be able to hold that and not collapse. One of the things that I was thinking about as we're winding this up, I feel like there's the integrity of the feminine in her expression. There's the integrity of the masculine. There's also the integrity of the relationship. And I feel like it's almost worthy of another whole podcast episode, but I feel like in some ways the entire dynamic of what a conscious dominant relationship is, that's in integrity, is the interplay of this polarity of the masculine and the feminine, of this dance between the two. And I see it play out so much in my own life, and I see it in if she's in her expression and then I get in my expression, one of the techniques that she does that I think you taught her was
to get more in her expression. So she'll literally get more feminine, more angry, more wild, more crazy. And I'm, oh shit, I see what happened. And it makes me aware. And then I'm, okay,
Yeah.
get your shit together and be in that.
Because
And
if she's feeling something and then it's not received, or the safety she's looking for isn't there, feels even less safe. Well, if she
Yeah.
shuts herself down now, she didn't do herself, you, or the relationship any favors.
Right.
So the more she is feeling whatever it is that's there, I've said it this way a lot of times, but a woman has to be willing to ruin the moment. And also, a woman can never protect her man from how she feels in response to how he's showing up. Never protect him from how you feel about him. If you're a woman listening to this, what's that going to mean? If you're needing something or you're feeling something and you share it and you express it and nothing's done, the thing that you were feeling that feeling in response to isn't improving, then that feeling is going to get bigger. Are you going to suppress it? Or are you going to shove it down now because, well, I guess he doesn't care? Their aliveness. No.
Right. There goes the life force. There goes sex. You see it with women. And I think so much of autoimmune issues attacking themselves.
Then what happens is they have this internal experience of disappointment, frustration, whatever. Right. That's the real feeling they're having. And then when they're showing up and still acting loving, acting kind, acting sexual, they're fucking faking it, because what they really is resentful, upset, afraid, disappointed,
right,
frustrated, whatever it is. That's what they're really feeling. And which one do you want? Do you want her to fake sexual desire? Do you want her to fake happiness? Do you want her to fake love? Or do you want her to really actually feel that way?
I know that any time that I'm needing her to be discerning, I'm needing her to fake it, I'm needing her to placate me, that's a telltale sign that I'm off and that I'm needing to go and take a little time out myself and to get myself integrated and bring myself to my own confidence and then come from that energy. But a lot of that is my own discernment, my own capacity to feel my own feminine. I think a lot of this, the efficacy of it is on the other side of me being in touch with my own feelings and my own sensitivities. Because if I'm not sensitive to them and hold them prior to being with her, then they become bigger and triggerable. That's the way to become untriggerable, is literally in my capacity to feel the things before she triggers them and deal with them. So that requires the sensitivity. Sometimes you don't know about them until they're triggered. So then you have to just take that as a stress test.
That's why a relationship is the ultimate
stress test.
The relationship is the ultimate practice ground for all of this work, because a woman will, by her design and nature, find those places that you are out of integrity, that you're out of alignment, and show them to you by the way that she feels around you.
I couldn't have said it better. I feel we've talked enough about this. I think we'll keep coming back to it, though. And I appreciate this conversation as always. And I want to say in the next several episodes, there will be an episode coming out that we're going to be speaking about the pillars of conscious dominance. And this is, in fact, one of them. We actually talked about another one earlier with the regenerative model. That's another pillar of this. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Andrew, for today. Enjoy your trip, your time in the city this weekend.
Thank you, and I will. And I also just have to say that my favorite thing about this episode was I actually got you to say "fuck you" to me.
I did.
Yeah, you did. That was great. Don't you dare edit that out. That was my favorite part.
Yes, you were right. You were completely right. You called me out, and I loved it. And I do identify with that, and I think that is an important part. But that also led to the more vulnerable part. You really were able to help me see that so that I could hold myself and be like, oh, wait. And I just was, yeah, she's right.
Thanks, man. I've loved this and look forward to doing it again next week.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.
You too, buddy.